Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny, and today it is time for another edition of my original book tag. You want me to go where? If you have not seen the other tags in this series, I have done a fantasy edition and a sci-fi edition, and today we are doing the horror edition. So this is an original tag that I've made where essentially I lead you through some questions and help you build your own blank. So I help you build your own fantasy universe, I help you build your own sci-fi universe, or in this tag, we're gonna build our own nightmare. So follow along with me with these 7 prompts. Let's see what monsters await. Prompt number 1 is, which horror setting would you die the quickest? And this was kind of a hard one for me to figure out, not because I wouldn't die in a lot of these books, but because a lot of these books feature things that I would be so far away of, like I would not step foot, you know, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole type of feeling. Like there are a lot of horror novels that are surrounding circumstances that I would not entertain. And so I was trying to come up with something that I might actually participate in and that I would probably die in. And I came up with Annihilation, the Southern Reach trilogy, which I have not continued on. I've only read Annihilation, but I definitely, I could see myself being curious enough that I would want to figure out what's out there. Now, I probably would have had to have been on one of the earlier expeditions. I don't think I would wait until, you know, the tens of people or the tens of expeditions have gone out and not come back or whatever. But if it was one of the earlier ones and we were told like there are some scientific discoveries out there and we need to figure it out what they were, I could see myself, you know, going. But I definitely could also see myself not being careful in this world. If you haven't heard of the Southern Reach trilogy, this is, maybe it's not a trilogy anymore. I know there's another book that was published this year, but I'm not sure if it's a second series or if it connects with this one. So there could potentially be 4 books right now. But if you haven't heard of the Southern Reach trilogy, you are following an expedition. I feel like we are following Expedition 13, if I remember correctly, but you have this civilization of people, you have Area X that has been separated off from civilization. There is no good way to get to it. And any expedition, scientific expedition they send out to figure out and study this area doesn't come back, or if they do come back, they are not well. And so we are following this group of scientists. There are, I think, 4 people that go, and you are following, like you are in the head of one of them, and she is journaling her way through this area and horrible things start to happen. And I will say that I still have no idea what went on in this book. I do need to continue the trilogy because I've heard that you do get some answers by the end, but not in this first book. So there are definitely things that I probably would do that would ensure my death. Prompt number 2 is a horror setting where you think you might survive. And for me, I chose Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. Not because I think that the events in this book would leave me living, but the book itself, the victims, not every victim, but the main target in this story are mothers, and I am not. And so I think I would live because of that. But if you haven't heard of this series, the book, I personally don't enjoy motherhood stories typically because I find it hard to relate to. However, this book I do think does a really good job, and it's scary as all get up. So I would recommend it. It follows a young couple, the mother of which, and they are a young couple. They have been trying to have a baby for a while. They end up having a baby, but the pregnancy and birth goes poorly, and she ends up becoming paralyzed within that process. And so she is raising a newborn as a person who has been newly paralyzed and is having to figure out how to live and how to help this new life survive as well. And her and her husband aren't doing well, but they end up getting a call. They were originally looking for a new apartment, and they end up getting a call because this really like ritzy place in town has a lottery that people can put in, and I don't know if it's free or if they reduce the rates to live there. I can't remember exactly how that went, but they essentially get a call saying, you've been accepted to live in this apartment complex if you would like to. It's an apartment or a condo on the very top floor. And it's beautiful. It would have been their absolute dream had this not happened to them. And so they do consider not getting it. But then they're kind of like, no, like, you know, we're going to make this work. And this is what we want. So we're going to do this. And there are some nefarious things that are going on in this apartment complex. And that's all I'm going to say. It's very haunting. It's very eerie, atmospheric. And I really liked it. So that's the one I think I would survive, but mainly just because I'm not a mom. Prop number 3 is scary but satisfying. Which horror world or horror setting would you live in because it's worth the risk? So I want you guys to think about which scenario you think would be cool because it would mean that XYZ exists. I have a book in mind for this. I am not going to tell you what it is because it is just a slight spoiler, not a huge spoiler, but I want people to go in like I did in this book. And I think, so I'm just going to tell you the aspect that I would think would be cool and I would take as a risk is if like some of the local lore and local legends, like folklore, the like Loch Ness Monster, like I'm talking about like legendary figures that have been passed down story after story, if they were actually real. I think that would be really fun. There is a particular book I have in mind that did have this and had some figures that I am very familiar with come to life in their pages, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Prop number 4 is where or to who would you send your worst enemy? So you can choose a specific setting, you can choose a world, you can choose a character that you would send your worst enemy to. So for me, I am choosing the Har. If I could take my worst enemy and give them to this character, that's what would happen. If you've never seen or not seen, if you've ever read the Har, it is absolutely horrifying what happens to some of the characters in this book. It's definitely not a book to go into lightly. Read trigger warnings and be prepared for a lot of gore if you haven't read it yet. But there is a creature called the Har in this story that does kill people. So if you haven't heard of this, it is set on, I believe it's an Irish cliffside where this town is being taken over by a very wealthy family or very wealthy corporation. They're building a golf course, but they're building a golf course in the middle of this village of people, and they are being very unfairly pushed out of their homes and their livelihoods. And so it's about one particular character who is bound and determined to stay on her land regardless of what these people are saying. She is an elderly character as well, and she's just going to give them hell. And she ends up interacting with this being, the Har. And I think that's all I want to say, because it was very intriguing to find out everything about this. It's very creepy and mind-bending. You definitely question whether or not certain things are real. If not quite as much as I would have appreciated. I would have liked a little bit more of that feeling, but I do think that there was some of that in there where you start thinking like, is this real? Is this really happening? But it was very, very spooky atmosphere. We have like the fog coming in from the sea, and I guess that's where the name comes from. It's the fog coming in from the sea. In Ireland, they call it the Har. And so yeah, I think that's where I would send my worst enemy. Prop number 5 is pique your interests. Which setting, world, character do you think would intrigue you enough if they lived in our world that you might actually investigate it? Like, you might actually tip your toe into, a haunted house, or would you interview someone? Or I want to know, like, is there somebody or something that intrigues you enough that you think you might risk it? My answer to this is The Haunting of Velkwood, which is a book I read this year and absolutely loved it. I think it was a 4.5 star. I loved the storyline. I loved how it was told. You follow the main character whose name was Talitha, and she is from the city, or the really street of Velkwood. I think it was an entire like little suburban area, but I can't remember if it's just her street that's called Velkwood or if it was the entire area. Anyway, she's from this area. This street is the one that is affected, and on this street 20 years ago, the town turned into a ghost town, and 3 individuals, 3 girls escaped, and our main character is one of them. And throughout the 20 years, they have been hounded to figure out what happened. There's been a whole bunch of research done on the neighborhood. They know that it's a ghost town, but they don't know why. They don't know why these 3 girls are the ones to escape. And there is now a researcher who has reached out to her. Talitha is not doing well. She's moved from job to job. She's never really settled anywhere. And she is haunted by the fact that she's left her mother and her, I think she was 8 years old, her 8-year-old sister behind in this ghost town. So her entire family were turned into ghosts and left behind as she escaped. And so this researcher reaches out to her. As I said, she's not doing well. She's having money issues, and offers her financial assistance to come back and actually go back into the town. And she agrees. And so you follow her trying to figure out, you know, why this happened, trying to get some answers, and then you are figuring out the mystery along the way. And I really liked it. I think that specifically if I was put in Talitha's position where my family was in a home that, or in a neighborhood that was ghosted or whatever, it became a ghost town, I do think I would do everything in my power to try and figure out what happened. So that is my answer to that prompt. The 6th prompt is nope. Which horrific events would you turn tail and run? So for me, I put 2 answers to this: incidents around the house and hidden pictures. And both of these involve children. Anytime we have creepy kids, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I mean, I want to read about it, but I don't want to be involved. In incidents around the house, you have a little girl who has a being who lives in her closet, and she is trying to keep this being away from her parents. She's trying to learn how to live safely around this being, and she calls the being Little Mommy, or no, Other Mommy, which is creepy. And Other Mommy keeps asking the little girl to come into her heart. And you have to follow the little girl's progression on how to figure out how to live with this creature safely and whether or not she can. And then in hidden pictures, you follow another little kid who likes to draw, and he continually draws really creepy illustrations of someone who is not there, who has there's blood and gore and everything in these pictures, and you have to figure out why this kid thinks that these events have happened. You follow, I think it's the person who you follow is the nanny of the kid, this person who, if I remember correctly, was a drug addict, and this family has decided to give this person another chance, and so she comes in and she's taking care of their kid, and she's the one who sees the kid starting to act weird and have these images in their drawing book and stuff, and so you have to follow the mystery there. So both of those scenarios, I would be like, I'm out. Peace. You guys, you figure out your stuff on your own. I'm gonna be over here. Prompt number 7. This is the prompt I always say, if you guys are going to answer any of these questions in the comments, please answer this one because I love to see the worlds that you guys create. This one, we are going to be building our own nightmare. And it's really building your own horror story. So I have some items that we're going to create, or that we're going to have to describe that we want in our story. The first thing, and I'm going to be looking down at my notes, is the setting. So where is your story set? Is it in a haunted house? Is it on in a specific city where maybe a serial killer is stalking, or whatever. Tell me where your story is set. The genre blend. So are you going to be doing a murder mystery if you're following a serial killer? Are you going to be doing a scary sci-fi? Are you going to be looking at fantasy elements? Are you going to be doing monsters? Or maybe you're just going to do straight horror and you're not going to have a subgenre. The next thing is the scare factor. What makes your story scary? So if I am choosing a murder mystery, then obviously I'm going to have a serial killer or some type of murder. If I am doing ghosties or like paranormal as my subgenre or my subgenre, then ghosties would be maybe my scary factor. The next thing, you have to have a main character. So who, preferably in a horror novel, but could also be like spooky season novel, whatever you want. Which main character do you want to go with you on your journey? The second, I want you to pick a spooky companion. So this person cannot be human. So I am forcing you guys to choose something that's not human. It could be a pet if you wanted to take like an animal or something along the way too. But I was really thinking like ghosts, werewolves, monsters, something like that. But if you want to go for like not a fictional world, you could choose something like a pet as your companion as well. And then lastly, the conflict. What are we following? What events are we leading up to? What are we trying to solve in the storyline? And then there's one thing I'm going to throw in that's just extra. I'm going to call it special edition. And for your special edition, I want you to tell me one thing that you would like your story to have that you have absolutely loved that's kind of unique. So, for instance, do you like a specific narrative style? Do you like, I don't know why this just popped in my head, but do you like the entire story to be in second person? Or maybe you liked mixed media, or maybe you enjoy dual timelines, something along those lines. So that's what I'm thinking special edition wise. So here's my story, guys. In setting. My setting is going to be a portal world. So I'm thinking The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. We have this really creepy area that has all of these doors that are open to worlds around the universe, which leads me to my genre blend, which is sci-fi. So I'm making it like a universal portal world. It can pull everybody into its evil clutches in this evil portal world. And then my scare factor is going to be monsters, but think aliens, like sci-fi monsters. So what gave me this idea isn't really a horror novel, but it kind of is. It kind of has like little sprinklings of elements, and that was Foul Days, which I just recently read. And I have found that I really like reading about monsters, like especially a variety of monsters. And so I want my creepy portal world to be filled with all these aliens that have different ways of killing people. And because one of the things in Foul Days, it's a cursed city, and the monsters come out for 12 days after New Year's Eve, and they have like a pamphlet that gets sent out to everybody yearly that tells them what type of monsters exist, how to avoid them, how to survive attacks if they are attacked, like how to get out of it and things like that. I love that concept, so I would like that in a sci-fi world. Next is my main character. Who would I take with me? And for this I chose Julie from The Dead Take the A Train. Julie is a demon hunter, and so I think having someone who is kick butt and kind of gritty to come with me to this world would be absolutely fantastic. She also is very sassy and crass, and I just think she'd be a good time. And then my spooky companion, I can't remember which character was which, but it's either Ford or Newland from the Pale House Devils, whichever one was the undead detective. So in that story, you follow an alive detective and an undead detective, and they kill the opposite. So the undead one kills live people, and then the live detective kills the undead, or like deals with the undead. They don't necessarily kill them, but anyway, I want the undead detective to be my spooky companion because he is also kind of sassy, and I think he would get along well with Julie. And then as for my conflict, kind of what's driving the story is, so we have this planet, this portal planet that sucks people in. It sends portals out to try and lure in victims. And I'm thinking that the planet is originally, it looks very docile, something that maybe, people can live in and go on vacations to, and like it pulls people in with its like happy-go-lucky, like come visit me vibes. And then when certain number of people are on planet, it becomes this terrorizing place and all of the aliens attack. So essentially it waits until there are a certain number of victims available to it, and then everything goes wild. And the conflict is going to be that I have a friend who has traveled to this portal world. I have been there while the world was docile, and all of a sudden my friend goes, I know that they're going to go, and they don't come back, and I have to go looking for them. And so I grab Julie and I grab, you know, my undead detective, and we go on a journey to try and get my friend back. We have to wade through the murders and the mayhem of all of the alien monsters that are on this planet. My special addition to my story, my little quirk that I think is something I really do enjoy in stories, is I want there to be some type of an interview. Like perhaps the book is told in dual timelines, and like the main story is following me and my friends going to the planet to try and bring back our missing friend. But then every once in a while there would be like a manuscript or an interview going on between someone who is interviewing me or one of the other characters at the end of all of this on the events that transpired, because I really like when there is some type of mixed media, but especially like an interview aspect, I really enjoyed that. The book I was thinking of whenever I came up with this was My Darling Dreadful Thing, because at the end of, not every chapter, but at the end of like a subset of chapters, there was an interview going on between a psychiatrist and a patient. And the patient is the main character in the book who has been accused of murder. And the psychiatrist is trying to figure out whether or not she is mentally stable enough to be held on trial, like actually put on trial. And I freaking loved that in that storyline. So yeah. So that is my original tag horror edition. I hope you guys enjoyed creating my nightmare with me. The people I'm going to tag, and no pressure if you guys don't want to do this, I just think it's something fun to do around spooky season. So if you would like to participate, I would love it. And if I don't tag you and you want to participate, please do so. The first person I would like to see do this is Mary from the Pumpkin Files. I know that you read a ton more horror than I do, and I would like to see what kind of crazy chaos you can come up with all of your resources. The second person is Lotta from Lotta's Nook. I know that you do 13 days of Halloween, and I would love this to be one of the days because I just think it would be fun to figure out where you would go with this. And yeah, I'm trying to give you content ideas. Lastly, I want to tag Sam from Samantha Donovan, because I recently, as I was listening to your Battle of Booktubers stuff, you mentioned that fantasy horror is one of your favorite genres. And so I would like to see where you take this as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this process. Please leave your answers to these prompts in the comments down below. I would love to chat with you guys. If you're not feeling chatty, leave a little bat emoji for spooky season. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.